I'm thinking about this idea of void in cities, that we should provide spaces where you don't actually have a lot of functions, but it's like just nice, empty. There's shade, green, maybe some trees and benches, but no commercial functions. And some kind of beauty. It could be art or just the beauty of nature, like here. And then you are able to sit and reflect and basically do nothing, but have some time to reflect. And I think under these conditions of the property-driven market conditions, it's very difficult to create this kind of spaces.
But I think even planning can justify creating a space where you don't have any function. Like, how do you do that at the municipal level, where you say, well, we need these buffer zones in between functions? I think now it's all about efficiency.
Yeah, you were just saying a moment ago, it was about, maybe not about creating public spaces. So it's something different than actually public spaces, but creating kind of buffer zones between commodified functions, right?
And then who produces those buffer zones and who gets to use it? I think property market actors are always looking to use it for themselves or like create some form of profit, but by changing the conversation a bit, you could create a space that provides a break.
Well, it connects with your research, isn't it, Nagla?
I think that these void spaces are very much a representation of what an inclusive space or city looks like, because then when you have when you have void in a space, you're not really defining your target audience, but you're creating a space for everyone, and everyone is going to interact within these spaces based on how they perceive the space. That's in my opinion.
But of course, municipal actors would say, I mean, if we would work in the municipality, it would be the first thing that comes to our plate, like who's going to secure, who's going to take care of the green space. There has to be some management costs included, that it has to be managed in some ways, to prevent that it becomes a zone for, I don't know, marginalized activities. And that kind of preventive thinking, unfortunately, prevents us from creating spaces that we can have for everyone. So what are your thoughts on how to manage that?
I feel that when we look at a space like this, it's so beautiful that people will already feel like they have a sense of ownership when they come to a space. They would like to keep it beautiful, they would like to keep it nice, and it automatically gives me a feeling of safety. And I would feel a lot of people would feel that way as soon as so you don't really have a function over here, but you've actually created a space, for example, for different types of species, but also you have a place for people to be in. And I don't know, the way or the form of this place is just already, it's a void, but it's a beautiful void.
But what if I'm homeless or alcoholic and I want to just use this space to camp in the corner and not being bothered by other people?
Yeah, I mean, this could happen.
I mean, here we pay an entrance fee.
Yeah.
It's not even any public space, so it's really well maintained, but we paid money for it. But I think, like, if you look in the city, they have these big trees, and just like a round bench around the trunk of the tree, like these mini spaces, it's kind of part of the just urban fabric, and people seem to just sit there and relax.
It is a bit like a park, like Vondel Park or Safati Park are also those spaces.
But they were spaces created by planning that basically planned a green space to connect different functions. We don't have that kind of planning anymore. We don't really plan green spaces. We let green spaces or public spaces in leftover areas. We let the public, not the public, but the private parties to design them. And we don't really take ownership of them as public authorities. And we can't actually plan them. In my view, we can plan them, but we don't really negotiate well, I guess. But we don't have these classic parks. I mean, in Belgium, for example, you have, because it's a 19th century city, you have these big gardens open gardens, parks or forests, they have nothing but just trees, grass and benches and some art here and there. And it's just open for everyone. Of course, municipalities have to manage them. But now, under today's conditions, we don't really plan them. On the contrary to what we should be doing, like planning for green spaces, we are doing on the contrary with densification plans, for example. We turn green spaces into living spaces. We actually create housing or other functions on top of them. Of course, we need to create new spaces for affordable housing, for example. And in a city like Amsterdam, these kind of spaces become subject to tensions to create this new living spaces. And of course, now we are doing the contrary of planning for green. We are taking green and turning them into built environment. And I'm really wondering whether the new functions like green roofs, for example, green walls, providing wooden structures or gardens in those projects is enough to replace real nature and give this function of void to people.
And I think this idea of densification where they take the public space and they try to put it on the roof of the building is actually going to create segregation, because usually spaces that are on ground, people around just come and meet, but if you're on a roof, obviously people from other areas are not going to come to that specific roof. And so we're starting to create other social issues and increasing like segregation or social inequalities by implementing such strategies.
Yeah.
Also, if you think about future-proofing the city, once the green space is gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
So if you want to change it in 20 years, it's very hard because you can always build on the existing green space, but demolishing a whole complex in order to build a park is very unrealistic.
Yeah, for that reason, we have to stick to planning norms. I mean, when I learned urban planning, the norm was you would never turn green to brown. Green in the urban plan, zoning plan, is the green public space, and brown was always referring to the built environment. And now we are doing that for the sake of providing new living environments without thinking maybe the wider perspective of regional scale of planning or more comprehensive planning to look for solutions. In my view, we are going for shortcut solutions to create new built environments in cities, and I'm afraid that will have some consequences for the nature in the city.
Maybe also in the tendering process, because there's points that are given towards like sustainability, and I don't know how it works towards social value, but if there was like a strong focus on room that gives social value, you might be able to choose or give the points that have a connection to that, like the project would happen.
Maybe we should have more conversations about how to do that in another session.